Episode 6. The Snake's Den. The swamps whispered with unease. The aftermath of the Mambas' ambush left the Mapogo battered but unbroken. Yet something lingered in the air, an unfinished chapter, an enemy still lurking. Cobra's departure had left wounds that refused to heal, and Lion knew they couldn't afford another moment of vulnerability. In the early morning light, Lion gathered the Mapogo in the barn. Rhino leaned against a post, his scarred face set in a grim frown. Turtle sat with his leg propped up, his bandages already blood-stained from the chaos of the night before. Panther stood in the corner, sharpening a blade in thoughtful silence. "We need to hit Venom before he rebuilds," Lion said, his voice cutting through the quiet. "The Mambas might be scattered, but he's still out there, and with Cobra, we can't assume he's finished with us." Panther's gaze lifted, sharp and calculating. "Venom's smart. He won't make the same mistake twice. If we go after him, it has to be clean and final." Lion nodded. "Agreed. This ain't just about survival anymore. It's about sending a message. There's no room for gangs like the Mambas in this parish." Turtle Benjamin. Turtle Thibodeau was the youngest of the Mapogo, the group's tech wizard and strategist. Born with a natural gift for problem-solving, Turtle had always been the kid who took apart radios just to figure out how they worked. But his childhood was anything but peaceful. Growing up in a neighborhood plagued by crime, Turtle saw firsthand how the system failed people like his family. His older brother had been falsely imprisoned, leaving Turtle to care for their ailing mother. When Lion found him, Turtle was running small cons to survive, hacking into systems, forging documents, anything to make a dollar. Lion saw the potential in him and gave him a purpose. Over time, Turtle became the brains behind the Mapogo's operations, designing traps, gathering intel, and building the tech they needed to stay ahead of their enemies. The scar that ran along Turtle's collarbone was a reminder of his first encounter with Venom, a close call that nearly cost him his life. It was that encounter that solidified his resolve to fight back, not just for himself, but for everyone the system had left behind. Setting the trap. The Mapogo spent the next 2 days preparing. Panther worked tirelessly to gather intel on Venom's location, using his network of informants to trace the Mamba leader to an abandoned warehouse deep in the swamp. "He's regrouping," Panther reported during a strategy meeting. "The place is heavily guarded, but he's vulnerable. He's spread his men too thin trying to reclaim territory." Lion studied the map on the table, his mind racing. "We can use that against him. Rhino, you'll take the north entrance with Panther. Turtle, you'll set charges on the east side to cut off any escape routes. I'll lead the assault from the west." "And Cobra?" Rhino asked, his voice gruff. Lion's jaw tightened. "If he's there, he gets dealt with." Cobra's dilemma. Meanwhile, Cobra sat in the shadows of the warehouse, watching as Venom barked orders at his men. The room reeked of disappointment and fear, the air heavy with the weight of impending violence. Cobra's thoughts were a storm of regret and anger. He had aligned himself with Venom to prove a point, to show Lion that his way wasn't the only way. But now, surrounded by the brutality and chaos of the Mambas, Cobra felt the sting of his mistakes. "You look like a man with something on his mind," Venom said, stepping into Cobra's line of sight. Cobra didn't flinch. "Just wondering how long this'll last. You've got half your men dead or scattered." Venom smirked, his teeth flashing like a predator's. "Long enough to make your brothers pay for what they did." Cobra's stomach twisted, but he kept his face neutral. "We'll see." The raid night fell over the swamp, the air thick with the smell of mud and moss. The Mapogo moved like shadows, their steps silent and deliberate. Turtle crouched near the east wall of the warehouse, his hands working quickly to set the charges. 5 minutes, he whispered into his radio. Rhino and Panther approached the north entrance, their weapons at the ready. Rhino's massive frame loomed in the darkness, while Panther's sharp eyes scanned for movement. Lion stood at the west side, his senses sharp. He could hear the muffled voices of the Mambas inside, their confidence a stark contrast to the quiet determination of the Mapogo. At exactly 5 minutes, the charges detonated, shaking the ground and sending plumes of smoke into the air. The Mapogo moved in. The warehouse erupted into chaos. Panther moved with lethal precision, taking out guards with swift, silent strikes. Rhino was a battering ram, his shotgun tearing through anyone who dared to stand in his way. Lion fought with a ruthless efficiency, his focus unwavering. Every move was calculated, every blow delivered with purpose. In the midst of the battle, Lion spotted Cobra. Their eyes met across the chaos, a silent understanding passing between them. Cobra hesitated, his blade clenched tightly in his hand. "You don't have to do this," Lion shouted over the noise. Venom appeared behind Cobra, his gun aimed at Lion. He's already made his choice. But before Venom could pull the trigger, Cobra turned, his blade flashing in the dim light. The knife plunged into Venom's chest, the leader of the Mambas collapsing with a look of shock on his face. The aftermath. The battle ended as quickly as it had begun. The Mambas were defeated, their leader dead, their operation dismantled. Cobra stood among the wreckage, his shoulders slumped. He looked at Lion, his eyes filled with a mixture of shame and relief. "I didn't know how to fix it," Cobra said, his voice hoarse. Lion placed a hand on Cobra's shoulder. "You just did." Epilogue. The Mapogo returned to the hog farm, the swamp once again quiet. The victory was bittersweet, but it was a victory nonetheless. As the sun rose over the bayou, the brothers stood together, their bonds stronger than ever. They knew the fight wasn't over. There would always be another threat, another battle. But for now, they had each other. And that was enough.